On February 12, 2026, Bloomberg didn't just break a story. They exposed something they were never supposed to see, a classified memo, a document circulating inside the Kremlin itself, a paper so sensitive it was being passed between the most powerful hands in Russia. And what was written on that page is the exact reason your portfolio is bleeding right now. If you hold silver, if you hold gold, if you watched silver explode to $121 and then collapse violently to $64, this memo explains everything. The 37% crash on January 30th, the $1,000 drop in gold that felt like it happened in a single heartbeat. This was not random. This was not coincidence. Here's the secret. Russia is begging to come back. Pause for a second and really process that. The same country that spent 4 years declaring the US dollar dead, the same leadership that promoted BRICS as the new world order, is now, quietly, asking America for forgiveness. And they aren't showing up empty-handed. They're bringing a deal. Not a small deal, not a symbolic deal, a $12 trillion offer. Oil, gas, nuclear power, artificial intelligence, rare earth minerals, lithium, platinum, strategic metals that power the modern world. All of it. And in exchange, just one request. Let us use the US dollar again. That single sentence changes the entire board. This isn't politics. This isn't headlines. This is your money, your silver stack, your future purchasing power. And if you don't understand what's happening behind this curtain, you're flying blind in the middle of a financial war. By the time this video ends, you will understand exactly what is unfolding, and more importantly, how to think about protecting your wealth. But to understand the crash, we need to rewind. February 2022, Russia invades Ukraine. The West responds, not with soldiers, but with sanctions. The United States and Europe didn't fire bullets. They pressed delete. They removed Russia from SWIFT, the global plumbing system for money. If SWIFT is the pipe system of the world's economy, the West shut the valves. Then they froze $300 billion of Russia's reserves, sanctioned oligarchs, sanctioned oil companies, cut access to euros, cut access to dollars. The message was brutal and clear. You are cut off. No dollars. No euros. Good luck surviving. Most economists predicted collapse, but Russia didn't collapse. They pivoted. They turned east. They chose China. At first, it looked brilliant. The Russian ruble and the Chinese yuan began replacing the dollar in trade. By late 2024, Putin proudly announced that 90% of Russia-China trade was happening without the dollar. 90%. Two massive economies, billions in goods, no greenbacks involved. Russia became the face of de-dollarization. At the 2024 BRICS summit, Putin literally held up a prototype of a BRICS currency bill. It was theater. It was symbolic. And the message was loud. The dollar era is ending. The markets reacted exactly how you'd expect. Gold surged. Silver exploded. Central banks bought 863 tons of gold in 2025 alone. Gold ran from $2,000 to $5,500. Silver rocketed from $24 to $120. If you bought early, you felt like a genius. But here's a law of markets. When investing feels too easy, you're usually walking into a trap. Because while the world celebrated the death of the dollar, something was breaking inside Russia, behind closed doors. The plan was turning into a nightmare. And this is the part the headlines didn't show you. When Russia replaced the dollar with the yuan, liquidity dried up. By September 2024, Russian banks hit a wall. They needed yuan to settle trade. But yuan wasn't flowing fast enough. Overnight borrowing rates in Moscow shot past 200%. That's not a typo. 200%. Imagine going to a bank to borrow money for one day and being told you owe double tomorrow. That's not finance. That's suffocation. Businesses couldn't access currency. And then it got worse. Major Chinese banks began rejecting Russian payments. They feared US sanctions. They didn't want to risk secondary punishment. China didn't abandon Russia loudly. They just quietly stepped back. Russia was stuck. Oil-rich, resource-heavy, but financially paralyzed. Payments that once cleared in 24 hours started taking 18 days. Imagine running payroll like that. That's not inconvenience. That's systemic failure. And here's where the power imbalance became clear. Russia thought China was a partner. China acted like a shark. They demanded oil discounts, 23% to 29% below global prices. They demanded gas below domestic Russian prices. Then in January 2026, they simply stopped buying Russian electricity. No meeting, no warning, just silence. That exposed the truth about the dollar. The dollar moves, the yuan doesn't. It's controlled, restricted, politically filtered. Russian companies were getting paid in yuan, but couldn't freely convert it. It was like getting paid in gift cards you can only spend at one store. The Russian economy wasn't drowning in debt, it was drowning in trapped money, and that's when the desperation began. So let's look at the scoreboard. Russia walked away from the dollar to gain independence, but they didn't gain freedom. They traded one boss for another, they fired Washington and hired Beijing. and Beijing turned out to be a much tougher negotiator. By early 2026,